is gripping Indian parents. It's the new buzzword. It's something that parents of children as young as 6 and 7-year-old are now discussing within themselves. And it's fueled in a sense by a lot of EdTech startups which have said that coding is the next best thing to do for your child. Give them an opportunity that you've never had as parents. It will make them future ready. Now, this is something which needs to be looked at from all angles. First of all, what is coding? Is it really necessary to start learning this language from a very early age? What are the positives? What are the negatives? Is it a game changer to secure your child's future, to develop different skills? Or is it just a bit of fad where parents are, climbing onto the bandwagon because of the fear of missing out? To look at all aspects of the coding craze that has gripped Indian parents, I'm speaking today to Madhav Chavan, a co-founder of Pratham Education Foundation. Kiran Tevtiya, child behavior specialist, is joining us on the show now. And I'm also speaking with Sahil Sheth, founder and CEO of Lido Learning. Welcome to all of you and thank you for speaking with us on the India development debate. Sahil, let me first start by getting your take. Why has coding become such a big thing, and are you seeing a lot of demand for it from parents? Explain to us this phenomenon.
Yeah, I think it's rooted with the world changing in a massive way over the last few years, which has been catalyzed with COVID. A lot of the schools are teaching curriculums which are outdated and not covering skills which are necessary for kids to succeed in the new world. And coding gives them technical skills, which allows them to build applications, which is very important because every industry automation is disrupting most industries, and these are skills that you need to acquire, and they're not being acquired in school. That's why there's a lot of demand for it outside of school right now.
Is it really necessary though, Sahil, to start coding from such a young age? Because parents are literally being bombarded by advertisements now, and there is a fear that their child may be missing out what other children are doing if they don't start learning coding from as young as 7, 8 and 9.
So when we are young, we tend to learn so quickly, right? Like when we are kids, there are no inhibitions and you pick up skills very fast. So it's never too early to learn any skill. It could be coding, it could be a language, it could be any skill. So the earlier you start, the better. Coding, the main value it adds is it teaches you to think in a structured manner. So you think sequentially, and that pays dividends in many other aspects of life, even if you don't want to become a programmer in the future, just because you tend to start thinking very logically.
Madhav Chavan, as an educationist, I want your take on this. Do you need to learn coding today to start thinking logically? Is it a skill that you will miss out on, if you don't learn it early enough? Is that really the future language per se, where you need to know how to code, you need to know how to build apps?
I don't know coding, so I guess it's an ignorant person talking about something very high knowledge subject. But my feeling is, first of all,
education.
Sorry? I don't know coding.
But
that's
you understand education, sir, and that's the question. Most of the people who have to take
everybody
yes, but most of the people who have to take a decision today on whether to make their children code also don't know coding.
Agreed. That's the point, and I think that is where the mistake is. The way we are talking about coding is not language. It is about a way of thinking, that just as Sahil said. So you don't necessarily need to talk about coding. Coding is the marketing language that's going out there. It's when you learn to, for example, learning mathematics early on. What do you mean by learning mathematics? I think if we just unfold that, then you will know that what you are actually going to learn is the algorithm of how to follow things, how things happen, what is the sequence of things happening. So this is just the way of thinking that we are going to pass on to the children. So this hype of coding classes and all that is marketing. That's the first part. The second part in this is when you say this madness is taking over, which section of Indian society is it taking over? It's not even reaching below, maybe the top 5-10%, yes, and maybe a little more, but below that, nothing. We are in a situation where the government is going to launch foundational literacy and numeracy campaign to achieve basic reading and numeracy for more than 60% children of India. So let's take it in a proper perspective. There's a hype, there's marketing, there's a lot of gaga, ha ha, hoo hoo. But I think bring it down and say, okay, there is a skill to be learned, but let's not overdo it.
Ms. Kiran, how do you look at it as a child psychologist? You know, as a parent myself, I know that children are already exposed to so much screen time because of online schooling. They already have several hours of screen time with them. They're anyway replacing meeting with friends with Zoom calls, etc. So that is one very real concern. Do you want to add one more activity which again involves more screen time?
Right. Tamanna, I think first thing is that what Sahil also mentioned, that we have to understand what do we mean when we say coding, right? Now, are we talking about developing computational skills, or we are talking about teaching the children the language which the computer understands? All right. So there are two different things. Now, if we try to assume that, okay, the young children can learn it much faster, any languages, they can learn 2 to 3 languages, going to 4 languages also early on. So computer language could be just any other languages. But what we need to understand is when a child is learning a language, first we need to place a need for it, right? So when a child is learning a language, a social language, it is to connect with people. There's an aim there, right? And there's a culture behind where the language is emanating from. So when we say that, okay, start learning coding early on, or you may never learn it, or you may miss the bus. So we are, in my opinion, unnecessarily creating a fear factor in the parents that, okay, if I'm not doing it, maybe I'm not doing enough for my child, or maybe my child will not be able to achieve the potential that he or she wants to achieve. Right? So we really need to remove that fear factor here. And what you rightly said is, of course, my more concern is that if what is it that it will rob the child from. So if the child is already in front of the screens because of their schools, though it's a coronavirus lockdown, and of course, you know, down the line, if it goes away, in any case, the child is using it for the entertainment. They're using computer, they are using iPads, they are using phones, they are using TV. Then we are adding one more screen here. That is, please learn the coding. And I have parents who say, you know what, my child just missed his or her coding classes today. So the parents have added that as one more problem to be solved, one more motivation to give to the children. So I think that is where the challenge can come. If only we start seeing coding not as a language, but more as just another skill. Like the way a child could be learning how a car works, right? The battery connections and all. Okay, how is it that the program which looks like, what is it going behind it? If it is just seen like that, then probably we'll get a perspective. Instead of thinking that my child is going to be more employable, because that is a wrong way, misplaced way of thinking. Just because my child is going into sports in the school, just because my child is going for music in the school, doesn't mean my child is going to be a sports person or going to be a musician. So we need to really remove the economics part out of it. And of course, as what Madhav sir also said, that there is definitely a big vested commercial interest out there. Why is it being pushed so much? So that's my take out here.
Yeah. No, so Kiran, I want your take also about the age from which children should start. You're right, it's an added pressure because it's an added extracurricular activity as well. We're hearing of children as young as 7, 6, 7, 8 who are now learning coding with this whole stress around it. When do you think is the right age to introduce something like this, which is generally complex and which perhaps their parents have no idea of? So they can't be of any assistance, or they can't even discuss it with them beyond a point. It's completely alien.
Right. Now, you know, the interesting part out here, Tamanna, is that the way coding is being designed, right? When it is being taught to the children, it is done in a very, very subtle manner. First, it's a block kind of thing, and it is done in a manner where they are able to hold the interest of the child, right? So it is done at the speed of the child. That's the beauty of it. That is why they are able to hold the interest of the child for much longer. Otherwise, it will become a very tedious. If you ask any of the programmer, I have been one. If you ask any of the programmer, they will say that the amount of discipline which is required out here, it is not about getting the thing working. It is more about figuring it out why it is not working. And we are also doing away with the biological development of a child, the abstract thinking of a child, the logical thinking of a child. All these things needs to be given time. We can't just expect a 6 years old child or 7 years old child to start thinking abstractly. The child is biologically not developed enough to start thinking from that point of view. So when you talk about right age, Tamanna, here, I would not want to put it as like very specific, but yes, as much as we take the screen time, as we take his skills, and if we notice that, yes, the child is showing interest in it, we can always take it from that point of view. But we cannot be putting it as that, okay, my child need to learn it. I need to motivate my child. It's like any other classes. Whatever classes that we send to the child with, it should be treated like that. If the child is not showing an interest, we shouldn't really give it some more time. When children are growing up in a highly technology dominated world, they are bound to learn the technical skills. So we shouldn't worry. An ideal age, if you ask me, should be at least till the time the child is at least able to sit through structural activities. Because if you think from coding point of view, at the end of the day, it is highly structured. It is a box. And the child had to think within the box, within the limited option of the box. Yeah. And young children, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, need to concentrate more on expansive thinking, need to concentrate more on innovative thinking, need to concentrate more on interpersonal skills. How do I go down and make friends, right? They need to learn behavioral skills, emotional skills, social skills. So more than the time which is going there, they should be developing these skills. So if you talk to me about the ideal age, it should definitely wait till they are 12, 13, 14 years old. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. We have a bunch of students. We are onboarding about 1,000 students a week right now. I can add to that as well. So what I would say is that when it comes to age, if you look at almost all successful leaders, in the last 10 years, your Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, you read any of their autobiographies, one thing they have in common is they focused on getting real world skills from a very young age, right? And the real world skills which matter right now, a lot of which are covered in school, but there are 3 in particular which are not covered in school. Those are technical skills like coding. Most schools don't cover that. Communication skills, that's not covered in most schools because it's a large group format. So many students in school don't get writing and oral communication skills. And the third is creative problem solving. So these are 3 skills which they're not getting in school, which are absolutely essential to become very successful in today's world, and is something that all leaders, always talk about. So it's because of that parents are showing interest in developing, and honing these skills in kids. And it's actually very important, we have from all age groups, and we can see that the youngest kids, in fact, we even have kids who are in kindergarten and first standard. These kids tend to pick up and learn much faster than the kids we have in the 8th and 9th standard, right? It's like when you're younger,
wait a minute, Sahil, I have to stop you there. Are you saying you have kids in KG? Sahil, 1 minute, I have to stop you there. Are you saying you have kids in KG class, in kindergarten who are coding?
It's not, so it starts with just logical reasoning. So when you say coding, you have to start with a foundation of at least, thinking in a structured manner. So in kindergarten, they aren't actually writing code, but they're learning to think in a structured manner. And then once they're in the 5th grade, that's when they actually tend to start writing their first few lines of code. But absolutely, we teach them, we have an English course. So for the KG 1, 2, 3, we have an integrated course of English, math and coding. And, in that integrated course, they learn communication skills, spoken and written. In math, they learn creative problem solving. And then in coding, they learn to think in a structured manner. And then as in the older years, they actually start developing applications and websites. But starting early, we have seen, and we have a huge sample size of data now, is absolutely beneficial. You learn very fast when you're younger. Just think about it, like,
Mr.
we're
Chavan,
older.
I want you to come in. I want you to. Yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. But Mr. Chavan, I want you to come in on this because, this is not now just restricted to a very niche group of parents who want to enroll their children in these private, coding tuitions or some such. This is part of the national education policy after grade 6. That's what's been proposed. Some state governments want to push this in their schools as well after certain standards. Do you think that this is something which is necessary, which is important? How do you look at the whole picture from the feedback that you've heard from Sahil as well as our other panelists?
Look, this is a skill that is let's say for employment purposes and so on, that is required in the next whatever decades. But the point is, how many jobs are going to be, if you look at only from the employment perspective, then how many jobs will India create that will be meant for coding? And does anybody actually take a trajectory there and say, okay, this is going to be like 50% of the next decade jobs are going to be all in coding? I don't think so. So this is a skill, like children have to learn many things. This is also something that is worth learning. It's not that you need to be experts in that. It doesn't need to say that you need to become an employee in a company who knows coding. The coding is not the particular skill of coding should not be talked about as leading to a particular job. I think that's not the point. In the future, what are the other things that you need to learn? The other thing is that one thing that we need to all understand is we are undermining a lot of other things that the children should learn and are easy to learn. For example, 50% of the population is still working on agriculture. Why don't we teach anything about agriculture? Why don't we teach gardening? That's equally very good. It's very creative. It's satisfying. Why don't we, like we said, everything is not technology and software. That is the big misconception that we have created in this whole marketing business. How many jobs are there in India that are connected to software and technology? Not that many. There's so much more that needs to be learned. So overall, learning to learn is important. And as a part of that, if you're going to learn all these things, that's great. But don't tell people that all that's going to happen is in software industry. All that you're going to do is going to be in code. That marketing is harmful. That's not correct. I think in the governments also, if the governments are saying start after 6th standard, there's no harm in doing that. But at least teach what is in the syllabus and curriculum, teach it properly. There's a lot to be done in education. We are just falling for the marketing languages, okay? I think we should be careful with those things.
Yeah, so software is definitely eating up every industry. So
well, I guess,
any industry, whether you're in agriculture, even if you're not in programming, technology will play a big part. And you don't need to be fluent in software programming, but having a foundation in it is absolutely essential. Like Steve Jobs couldn't write any code, but he had a foundation, at least in software.
If I want to be an agriculturist, why do I need to have a foundation in software? I should not be afraid of computers. I should not be afraid of technology. I should know the possibilities that exist from technology. That is true. But that doesn't mean I don't understand coding. I'm not in the sphere of coding. I'm not in the sphere of software, but I know how to use software.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So,
absolutely. If you get a foundation in it, you're able to.
I think it's important. No, I guess it's up to parents to make an informed choice, not driven by fear of missing out or fear of peer pressure for their children.
Absolutely.
It's a choice that each parent has to make. Perhaps try it out for your child if you feel like it. If they don't like it, it's fine. It's maybe treat it like any other extracurricular activity your child might take to it, might not. It's okay if they don't like it. Let's not add more pressure to our little ones in this day and age especially. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us and giving us an entire perspective on this very interesting issue. I hope those who are watching have benefited from it.